Welcome to Balance and Beyond, the podcast for ambitious women who refuse to accept burnout as the price of success. Here, we're committed to empowering you with the tools and strategies you need to achieve true balance, where your career, relationships, and health all thrive, and where you have the power to define success on your terms. I honor the space you've created for yourself today, so let's take a breath and dive right in. Welcome to Balance and Beyond, and today we are talking about a 4-letter acronym that we are hearing more and more, and this is ADHD. And you may be asking yourself the question, do I have ADHD? And I'm joined by the lovely Sabina, one of the newest members of our team. We're going to talk about what this means and, importantly, what are some other ways that you can actually control your brain without worrying about a diagnosis. Welcome, Sabina.
Hello, Joe. Lovely to be here with you all.
It's a hot topic, isn't it? And obviously with the increase in neurodivergence and diagnosis, it's a really important conversation that we need to be having. But before we dive in, a really, really important disclaimer that I want to make sure we put up front. And this is, we are not diminishing for a second anybody who has diagnosed ADHD, who is suffering with the symptoms, who is living with somebody or impacted by somebody in their lives who has neurological challenges. So we do not want to in any way have anybody jumping down our throats and saying, oh my gosh, you're saying that this isn't a thing. We're not saying it's not a thing. We are saying that as women, there are many symptoms of what may sometimes be perceived to be ADHD. In actual fact, there are a wider range of factors that we believe are at play, particularly for women's brains. So we want to put that out there. We want to reassure you that this is a really important conversation to be having because it is knocking in our community all the time. It's a bit crazy what we're seeing, isn't it, Sabina? This broader trend of women ultimately not being able to focus would be one of the main challenges that we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common, not only in our community, but, my previous corporate career as a global HR manager, this was a conversation that was being bandied around the offices a lot, not just with women, but obviously our community here is with women. And the reason why we're saying that, yes, there may be ADHD at play, but the reason why we're saying maybe it's not is because we see the results of unpacking what is getting in the way of women's ability to focus. And over the course of the time that we work with women, we see dramatic shifts and improvement in clarity and focus and productivity. And it's really important that we don't resort to this label or thinking that there's something wrong with us when there are steps that we can take to turn things around and improve.
Absolutely. And whether people end up going down this diagnosis path and choosing a medication path, there are still huge amounts of things that are actually within our control that don't involve taking a pill that actually get us what we're looking for on the other side of that. I heard someone say recently that attention has become the greatest currency of our time, because particularly anyone who has a teenager knows that they last about 4 seconds on something before they flick it away. And so we are breeding a generation who have even shorter attention spans than us. So Sabina, why don't we talk through some of the reasons that we see women really struggle to focus and start going down this path of Googling, maybe I have ADHD, because that is what they're experiencing. Why don't you kick us off with what you think is one of the big issues that we see?
Yeah, well, you just touched on it. It's the fact that we are living in a time in society where we are expected to multitask. And typically, women have been said to be able to multitask better than men. And our plates are just becoming fuller and fuller and fuller. The fact is that our mental load of what we're carrying has increased. And so there's the mental load at work, there's a mental load at home, there's the emotional load of caring for people. So no doubt our bandwidth is being stretched beyond what we were experiencing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and certainly who we were in childhood. So this superpower of being able to multitask is actually, I think, causing huge issues. And, you know, if you think about the analogy of your computer and your, you know, web browser tabs, we've effectively got too many tabs open. And what do? Do we tend to shut down the tabs at night, or we just put our computer to sleep? And then in the morning, we add more tabs on. And so our brains are like this. We are adding instead of strategically subtracting and closing down and completing tasks and having that sense of a dopamine hit to be able to move on to start a new task with fresh bandwidth. So we have tabs open on our computers, we have tabs open on our phones, and effectively we have all these tabs open in our brains, and we're not designed to hold that much information incomplete at one time.
And the crazy thing, isn't it, is that so many women attach their sense of self-worth to, well, I've got to get it all done and I can't rest and I can't close down those tabs because who's going to book the dog into the vet and who's going to book in that dentist appointment? Never mind the fact that every time you remember to call the dentist, it's at 2 a.m. and they're not open right now. So you keep that tab open until 10 o'clock the next night when you actually then remember, oh, I've got to call the dentist, but you're holding it the entire time. And what's interesting is that the more we know about our brain and neuroscience is that our brain almost gets used to all these tabs being open. It's incredibly fatigued, but it starts flitting between them. So it's almost like your brain goes, don't forget the dentist, don't forget the dog, don't forget this report that's due. Oh, don't forget, it's blah, blah, blah on Friday. It's this weekend coming up. It's da, 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 da. And so we don't actually learn how to control our brain. It's like this runaway crazy train that often I say is like ants in our head that we haven't actually trained properly, have we?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. We have not been given the tools to be able to know how to drive our brains most effectively to deal with demands today. And, something else that we hear from women a lot is that they're starting to almost gaslight themselves and think, what's wrong with me? I'm broken. Why can't I manage this? How come she's able to do this? Oh my God, Sue over there, in finance is able to juggle all the things and I'm not coping. And so instead of asking more empowering questions, we're hearing a lot of women are spiraling into this questioning, as you say, of their self-worth and their ability to cope. And no doubt our plates are full and we are stretched, but making yourself wrong instead of learning how to drive your brain, learning how to put yourself in environments with the tools to make yourself thrive are what's really important.
And this is how we get our focus back, isn't it? With everything we talk about here is mindset and strategy. And so we beat ourselves up for our behavior of switching and holding all the tabs, but so few women are actually willing to do the work to say, all right, well, what am I making it mean if I don't get to the dentist today? Or heaven forbid, I might have to say no to someone and not say yes to everything. Because imagine if my self-worth is not based on being a yes person, I can actually start not only closing down some of these tabs, but also not creating new ones. When you say yes to the school fete and yes to the netball thing and yes to doing this and yes to helping this person, it's like, well, we've got to get these women back on their own radars, don't we? Like, I promise you, and all those tabs that are open, none of them are for them. Right?
Well, that's right. Where are you in and amongst all of that? And you can see, or we see regularly, the cascade of issues that come from that. When you've got all these tabs open and you're doing all things for everybody else, then you get this creeping sense of resentment, and you can see where your people pleasing comes in or your perfectionism comes in. So there is so much to this topic, but what we're talking about today is how to start thinking about your brain differently and giving yourself a chance to be able to turn things around so that you're in control.
And this is what we love doing here, because when we learn to get this focus back and we can actually be present in the moment, we see dramatic shifts, don't we? Not just in productivity and efficiency, which is given the volumes of stuff, work and home that everybody is holding, we need to be more efficient. We need to stop the procrastination or the crazy self-sabotage programs. But we see changes in other areas of life too, don't we? When you actually learn to be present and learn to hold your attention, say, I don't know, at dinner with the family or at bedtime or with your partner.
Yeah, that's right. And again, this comes back to, the antidote to multitasking is really zeroing in and being fully present for a much shorter time than you think you need to on one task. Being fully present with perhaps doing the washing up sounds very boring, but feeling the water on your hands, or being fully present with the mouthful that you're eating, being with your children. 5 minutes of presence with your children fills up their cup. You don't have to spend an hour of your time, which sometimes feels impossible. So these little pockets of focus on one task or with one person are really, really powerful and potent, and they are the antidote to feeling like your brain is about to literally burn out.
Absolutely. And there's one other topic that is related to this and probably warrants an entire episode in itself. But given the ages of where many women who come to us are, I think it's also really important to mention the impact of hormones and menopause or perimenopause on our brain. And this is no surprise, often the age that women are thinking, oh, I've got brain fog and I can't pay attention. And so they start giving labels to it when in fact, it may be something completely different, mightn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, to add to that, anyone who's had a baby, we also know the term baby brain, and it can be a challenge. But yes, speaking to perimenopause, it's interesting. In the workplace, in the UK, legislation has come in to support women in the workplace going through perimenopause and menopause, because it's understood that there are challenges that happen in the brain and in your physiology. And so, again, it's important not to make yourself wrong and to question am I good enough? Am I up to this? Should I just give up? And to really take stock. So the invitation with all of this, no matter what phase of life you're in, whether you think perimenopause may be at play, is to stop and take stock and to ask a more empowering question. Have I actually put myself in the right environment to have a chance of thriving? Have I stopped to think about what I need to be able to clear the mental clutter and create space for myself? Do I need to book in an appointment with a healthcare practitioner? Do I need to lean into support from my friends, my partner, work? It's about changing the question and the inner critic and the limiting beliefs to questions that allow you to seek a solution. And solutions are possible, but you do have to stop, pause, reflect, and then take empowering action to be able to break this, spinning cycle of feeling like your brain is this runaway train.
And the irony is when your brain's a runaway train, that can be really hard to do, can't it? Sometimes it's just easy to Google, do I have ADHD? And find yourself at 3 a.m. taking a do I have an ADHD quiz, because there is a plethora of things. And then suddenly, oh my gosh, you recognize all the symptoms and oh my gosh, this is my problem. And that can feel like a easy solution. All right, that's it. I need to get diagnosed. And then suddenly, because I have a diagnosis, everything's going to be better. Well, whether you have a diagnosis or not, whether you technically have ADHD or not, what matters is how you show up in your life. What matters is how you get done what you want to get done. It matters how you're present for what you are actually achieving and accomplishing, because there's no point. What we see is when these brains have completely run away, is this level of franticness and cortisol that people live life with. Like, there's so many tabs, don't have time, got to do this, got to do this. They were doing the dishes, and rather than going, all right, well, I can't speed up doing the dishes. Well, maybe they feel like, Tassie Devil kind of being a hurricane going everywhere. But all right, well, let me do the dishes really quickly. Let me clean my teeth. Let me clean them really quickly. But while I'm cleaning them really quickly, I'm going to think about tomorrow. First up, right, this. Slowing down is one of the hardest things to do. Isn't it ironic, Sabina, that we've always heard this mantra, slow down to speed up, get back control of your brain. But we've got to break through this cycle of thinking that I'll just get on top of it all. Let me get through the list. I'll get through this. I'll get through this season. And then I'll deal with it, or then it will be okay. Because it never gets better, does it? It's a pathway to burnout.
It's never ending. Your to-do list is never ending. The demands on your time at work, at home, are never ending. So it is absolutely critical to find ways. There are simple tools. If you are shown, there are simple tools that you can use to literally create what I refer to as white space. It's like clearing something off the whiteboard just to create this white space so that your nervous system can relax, your brain can come back online, your prefrontal cortex, where you get, ideas and inspiration, will have the space to be able to go, oh, and that's, creativity comes in. Have you ever had the experience where you're standing in the shower and you're just so relaxed that you get all this amazing inspiration coming through? That's just taking 5-10 minutes to be present. And it's amazing what can open up. So you don't need a lot of time or a diagnosis to be able to start training your brain to relax, create space, and other ways of showing up in your life. And we absolutely love seeing this become a possibility with the women that we work with. People who sometimes come into our community and they genuinely say, I think I'm broken. My brain just is not working. I just don't think I'm up to the job. And seeing who they become throughout the journey and gaining that confidence and clarity back it's just wonderful.
And we love it when we do get to see women actually get control of their brain, because one of my favorite sayings, we have entire modules on the brain because it's so important for us to understand how our brain works, how a female brain is different from a male's brain. All this neuroscience is critical for our very intellectual and intelligent selves to go, oh, that's what it's doing. And the moment we realize that our brain is like any other organ in our body, one of my favorite sayings is that you have a brain, you are not your brain. It's like you're letting your hand run the show. Well, no, your hand isn't the one typing. Your hand is just the series of muscles that are doing the thing. So when we learn to transcend our brain and have it actually work for us, not against us, gosh, life becomes so much simpler, doesn't it, Sabina? We've spoken about increasing efficiency. We've spoken about being present. What are some of the other benefits that regardless of diagnosis, when you can start controlling your brain and it's working for you, what do we see as some of the beautiful upsides here?
Well, it ripples out into every aspect of life. If your brain isn't constantly going at 200 kilometers an hour and you're able to just regulate your entire nervous system, your brain is part of your nervous system, your entire being, energy, presence switches. And so you bring that to whatever situation you're in, whether it's at work, feeling like you're more grounded, more influential, calmer in meetings. Your children will feel it. You then start having access to these desirable emotions such as happiness and calm and joy. Those elusive emotions which we used to have. That's the power of taming your brain, is that you show up differently, and you could have fun with your girlfriends or socially. This is not just about being more productive or efficient at work. That is not the point of life. We want to be having wonderful impact at work, but we also want to be, creating memories and impact and connections and joy in our own lives. And so, yeah, the ripple effect is throughout.
Not to mention, there's just this beautiful sense of peace that you get to live with in your own being. That's one of the biggest transformations for me, I'd say, I've had over the last 10 years, is I was constantly rushed. I was running, literally, I'd run to the bus, I'd run home, I'd run to a meeting, I'd be on the bus, quick, get out the phone. Like my mantra for life would have been hurry up. Like everything was hurry up, get into bed, hurry up, eat your dinner, hurry up, put the dishes in the dishwasher, hurry up. It's like, where the hell am I going? What the hell is the rush? Because you can never get it all done, to your point. So I know you experience this too, this beautiful sense of internal peace and calm when the franticness goes away, and the ripple effects in my family, my kids are that much calmer. All my relationships are better because I've now got the space. Doesn't mean I'm probably busier now than I was 5 years ago. My business has tripled in its size. Everything is bigger. My kids are now older. I've got more activities. And yet on the inside, I am calmer. I'm more regulated. My nervous system is under control. I've got greater immunity. It takes a lot to rock me. These are things that this is why we live. Like, yes, it's about everything outside of us, but you have to live in your body 24 hours a day. We can't go, oh, I'd like to live in that body for a little while. So to me,
That's
I think
right.
that is one of the absolute gems that I was so used to living in this cesspool of resentment and guilt and franticness that I only got glimpses maybe on holidays. I was like, oh, there was a joke in my family that there was Holiday Joe, and Holiday Joe was chill and a lot more fun and relaxed. And then I'd come back and zip right up. Imagine if you could be Holiday you more often.
And it's this sense. It's something else we hear is that women are just living with this sense of urgency the whole time, and just feeling hyper vigilant the whole time, and catastrophizing. And when you're operating at this constant level of stress, everything feels like a threat.
Mm.
Everything feels urgent, and you're worried that something's going to go wrong. And we should not be living our lives just for 1 or 2 holidays a year. There is something fundamentally wrong if you're saying to yourself, oh, I just need to get through the next quarter, or I just need to get through until the holiday. No, because your body, your brain, your life, your family is far more important, and it's the day-to-day living that makes a difference. It's not 1 or 2 holidays a year.
Absolutely. And this is why we want you to tame your brain. And whether you believe you have ADHD or not, what I hope we have done in this episode is give you some greater context to what actually could be going on, what actually is causing some of your challenges or your symptoms, you could call it, and give you hope that there is another alternative, that there's another way to live, that you can find that peace you're looking for. You can control your brain. Yes, as we've said, you can be productive, but let's get you back living in your life again. Thank you for joining me, Sabina. It's been an awesome discussion, and one I know many, many women hopefully start Googling different things now. Thanks for joining us today on the Balance and Beyond podcast. We're so glad you carved out this time for yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might need to hear this today. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice would mean the world to us. If you're keen to dive deeper into our world, visit balanceinstitute.com to discover more about the toolkit that has helped thousands of women avoid burnout and create a life of balance and beyond. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Balance and Beyond podcast.